my number one is the movie The Queen from 2006, directed by Stephen Frears, starring Helen Mirren, Michael Sheen, and a whole bunch of other great British actors. Quick logline: after the death of Princess Diana, Queen Elizabeth II struggles with a reaction to a sequence of events nobody could have predicted. Yeah, so like the logline says, this movie is based on this very specific moment in time when Tony Blair has become prime minister, Diana just dies, and the Queen is kind of wrestling with how to react with to Diana's death, but also it captures this kind of change in time of what Britain goes through, and through that even the world goes through in terms of how we internally deal with our emotions, but also this everlasting question between monarchy and government. What is the place of the monarchy? It has a lot of different themes on his mind. But yeah, curious if you'd watched this movie before.
Yeah, I saw this when it came out and loved it,
Yeah.
and hadn't seen it, I think, since then. And it was interesting because when I saw it, my opinion of all the people in the movie was very high in terms of the real people. And now I think I despise every single person that's depicted in this movie, but the movie's still great. And I was like, this movie is so good. It's just so well done. I love the acting's like everything is great. So my personal opinion having changed did not affect my enjoyment of the film. It was really great to watch this again, especially now the timeliness of the fact that she had passed away recently and there's a new leader in Britain. And I'm sure the British people are going through a lot of these same questions that were being asked in this film with what's the point of these people? Why do we need them? Are they good? Are they bad? Are they human? Are they lizard people? Like whatever, they talk about over there. So it's kind of timely to go back to the question this movie is raising.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I'd watched this movie not when it came out, but a little bit after. But I still remember I was in India at that time when Princess Diana died, and
Oh my God, yeah.
it was a crazy time even there. Like I still remember there were these two girls who lived right above us, and they basically didn't leave their apartment and for like a week. And their mother we would run into her and we were like, how are the girls doing? And I was like, oh, really? What's happening? And I was still young. And of course, anybody passing, especially anybody of this kind of notoriety passing, is sort of a sad
suddenly in a horrific accident.
Suddenly in a horrific way. But I didn't, I was, even though, growing up in India, obviously the whole thing with British and colonialism and all of that is very much part and parcel of, how you reckon with history and such. But I wasn't sort of, an Anglophile or a monarchy obsessed person either way for or against, neither. I was sort of neutral. And I think watching this movie, what I said up front, I think this movie is the best example of sort of humanizing people who are so far away from you. You may agree or you may disagree with what they stand for, what their beliefs might be, but you absolutely connect with them on their humanity.
Right.
And that's what this movie does. And you just need a week really of insight to get that flavor. So like you said, the performances are great. I watched this movie several times since then because it's such a great acting showcase, which is the kind of movies that I like, but it's also a big scope movie, which is probably my favorite kind of movie, which has all the elements at play, but it's also a great acting showcase. So yeah, I watched it many times since. And yeah, I still kind of fall on the same side, which is of that these people are also humans, they're put in circumstances. Yeah, they could probably end the whole thing and walk out the door, but that would also not be a human thing to do because humans don't do that. If they're given power, they don't leave it, actually. So it's all very human. And it's sort of fun to see the two, Tony Blair and the Queen, wrestle through that. And then I think the movie is also very funny. Like Prince Philip is like hilarious to me. All of his quips and jabs. I mean, they're all super inappropriate, but quite funny. All the ceremonies, the fleet of corgis running up and down. Like it's for a topic that's quite serious. The movie is actually very light on its feet. It doesn't take itself too seriously. And I also love how the movie intercuts like real life footage of how people are reacting to Diana's death. There's no actress playing Diana. Like those are such brilliant choices to kind of really create what it was like to live in that time. Because you might be indifferent all the way to somebody who absolutely obsessed and loved Diana, to maybe somewhere in the middle, or somebody who thought she was okay, and
or hated her,
or hated
like
her
the
even.
family, the royal family did. Yeah.
Right. So you get to see all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the movie poses some really smart questions. And as always, everybody's in the gray.
No, I thought that was a brilliant choice of the press too, because the
Yeah.
press is so much of a character in this movie,
Yeah.
with a lot of where, what the queen was kind of complaining about, and the family was too, of it's the press and how they were portraying Diana and how she was using the press, and she knew how to use the press a lot better than they did. And I think they were kind of jealous of her for that. But so by not directly having like a news reporter part of this thing, and it was just, no, like, she's off in her castle somewhere watching everything on TV. I mean, that's how she even dealt with this whole story, which is the same. For me, I was at remember, like, it was one of the, I think, the only time I ever babysat at all growing up. I was at someone's house babysitting their kid, and like I just put them to bed, and I was downstairs watching TV, and I saw the thing breaking news, blah blah blah. And I was like, the rest of the night I was just like glued to my TV, much like they were too.
Yeah.
The royal family, like, they didn't have any kind of benefit of access to anything, because they also were viewing everything through the TV, at least in this movie. And that helps you put yourself a little bit in her shoes, like, oh, we were both watching what was going on the TV. Like, she was sitting there with Philip watching it, and so was I. So it does make her very human in this film, and I think a lot of it is to the acting credit.
Amazing,
And it very easily, because all these people, from Tony Blair to Philip to the Queen, they're all famous, and they could have fallen into the trap, like the movie we just talked about, The Doors, where the actors are sort of playing caricatures of these real life people. These to me feel almost more human than the actual real people, because I didn't hang out with a queen for a week and really kind of get inside her head. I see her as a caricature in real life, and Tony Blair and all these folks, and this movie does humanize them in a way that I think is the triumph of the screenplay, really.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Peter Morgan has made a career on this, and he's brilliant at it.
That's right. He has that Crown show now.
Yeah.
It all started with the Queen. Yeah, this is one of the first one. Or actually, he might have done some TV movies with Blair. He had a bunch of Blair movies that I watched. So
I see.
He has a whole cinematic universe around the Windsors that he's sort of the Kevin Feige of. But I think that's the brilliant thing in this film. And I love too the opening shot of the movie where she's getting a portrait painted.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's like an artist interpreting her in real life, which is again what the movie's doing. So I think that's a way to kind of say, look, we don't actually know what happened. This is just Stephen Frears and the screenwriter's interpretation of what actually existed and who these people are, because we can't know who anyone is, unless you get a brain transplant or something like that,
Right, exactly.
So I think that's such a brilliant way to open it too, because then it's sort of like, look, we know this isn't maybe real, but it's a slice of how we're trying to bring empathy for the audience to these people in a situation that is relatable. Like, people know people that die. Yeah, it's not always Princess Diana, but it's like the problems they're trying to solve are very human problems that everyone has. And they responded in human ways,
Totally. I mean, it's a daughter-in-law who you love, but then things didn't go right, and you love their son, but they've turned out to be disappointing in different ways. You thought they would do things differently or make different choices, but yet the strategies happen. You care for your son and your grandchildren, but you also have these complicated feelings about the relationship that existed.
Right.
This is all could be happening in, your neighbor's home, in your own home. So
exactly.
And I think the other thing the movie does such a great job at, which is a central question of, monarchy, should they be around or no? And the movie plants enough characters across the board that are, revering them, but also throwing jabs at them in a very smart, sort of clever way, which is never, cheap in any way, but it's all thought provoking, right? And you're sort of shifting your allegiances all the time, which is such a clever thing to do in a movie. Like right from the first scene when Tony Blair and his wife, they show up, at first you're like, oh my gosh, all this pageantry, and you can't do this, you can't do that. But then as time goes on, you sort of start to get pulled in the tradition and the ceremony and all of it as well. And then you're immediately like, oh no, this is all silly. So it's such a clever movie in that sense, which is also probably what's happening in real life. Like this thing exists because it provides this sort of pageantry and something for people to root for, as much as reality TV stars or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you see those hordes and hordes of bouquets and what have you outside the palace where people have just been camping out.
Right.
And are so touched by this and have lost their meaning in life. I mean, it's amazing. And it's all happened.
Oh, definitely. And I think how I interpret at least the Queen's journey in this movie is a lot of kind of what you were saying. I don't think she realized, and I'm not saying this to belittle the monarchy either, that they're essentially just reality TV show stars. Yeah. And that's how people see them. And they love, and they get a lot of things out of that. And Diana was that. And the Queen sort of, I think, was feeling like she was something different. And she's not really. And that is her revelation, I feel like, by the end of the movie. Like, Blair's really in charge of the government. She's not. She serves a purpose. And when she doesn't provide that to the people of mourning with them because of a death of another one of the stars of the show that just passed away, and she's trying to act like, no, I'm the Queen. I can't be doing these sowing emotions. Like, well, hold on a second. The Queen is now this. The Queen is a reality TV show, and that's an important thing for the country. And they need you to act a certain role that I think she was reluctant to play until the end, and then realize, oh, that's why they love Diana, because she's giving them this thing that I should be giving them, or can be giving them, and they want me to give it to them. Yeah, as my what's it? Not citizens, my public, or my people, or whatever the crown refers to it as. So that's sort of how I interpreted her journey, which again is something sort of a humbling experience for her in a way. It's not what I thought I was, but I still play a role. I'm not useless, but I just have to act in this new way now because this is my subjects. That was what I was looking for earlier. My subjects want,
Yeah, totally. And you empathize in that because it's not, none of this is easy.
For sure. Yeah. Like, you thought you were something you're not, but you still serve a purpose. So it's just like wrestling with that a little bit, I think, is what this movie does really well.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Hey there, it's Alex. If you like the review and discussion Karan and I just had, make sure you subscribe to our channel, Movies That Shaped Us, to get full episodes. Every other Wednesday, Karan and I cover a topic around important people, places, events, and moments in our lives, and then explore it through 3 of our favorite movies. Subscribe right now, or follow our podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts via the link in the description below. Hope you join us for the journey.